I'm going to deal with the Charlie Kirk situation. Coincidentally, he was at a college today. I was at a college yesterday with the Whole Brother Mission tour. We were talking about suicide prevention and awareness and how to support a friend. And we were able to give away a $1,000 scholarship. That's what I chose to talk about when I had an opportunity to speak at a university. Check atwbm.com for other tour stops. Now, I want to address a series of posts about Charlie Kirk. So, someone on Twitter said that Charlie Kirk reaped what he sowed. And when I saw that, I reposted it on Twitter and I said, Vody Bakum said this about Mike Brown and was widely applauded by conservatives. I then screenshotted that and posted it to my Facebook page. And I said, I remember being at a predominantly white college, watching everyone celebrate Vody's comments about Mike Brown. I imagine they don't view the Charlie Kirk situation the same way. So there's a lot of thoughts going through my head, but I'm going to go ahead and clarify something. I didn't support it then when it was said about Mike Brown, and I don't support it now. But what's frustrating is a lot of people, particularly people that went to that college that I was telling you about or in those conservative circles, want to now look at those posts and change the conversation to, well, what do you think? Do you think that Charlie reaped what he sowed? I don't. But again, that's not the topic right now. The topic is not about hypothetical thoughts. The topic is the facts that a black evangelical man named Vody Bakum said years ago that Mike Brown reaped what he sowed when he was killed, and that thousands of Christians, particularly white Christians, were endorsing this black man saying this. And I remember being in college and everyone sharing this article like, yes, Vody's spot on. Mike Brown, who is now dead, reaped what he sowed, and everyone was supporting it and applauding it, and it was just this great, timely, prophetic message. And I try to get people to think, and a lot of times people don't want to think. They don't want to consider the nuance. It was apparently okay when it was the black person being killed, but now all of a sudden, if it was said about Charlie, people are ready to blow up and make a scene. Again, I don't think it applies in either case. I think the much larger conversation, though, is why are so many conservatives, Christians, evangelicals okay with stuff like this when the person that dies was black? But somehow it's a problem when the person that died was white or having the same ideology. Two of the main issues here are what happens on the conservative side a lot of times, and this is why Republicans don't get a lot of black support, is because they choose black people to herald messages that racists believe. And they think that they now have cover and you can't call them racist because the black person said it. That's not cool. Vody has played that role in more Christian spaces, but then you have others in politics like your Tim Scotts who play that role. And I hate that behavior altogether. Being the black face that is the puppet or the megaphone for white supremacist messages. In addition to that, it's important that it be said that Charlie did not deserve to be killed, but Charlie was also a virulent racist. Just because you agree with some of his conservative ideals, you need to look into his messaging deeper. Charlie lied quite a bit to stoke division and present negative messages about black people as a whole. Charlie would lie about statistics. He would draw conclusions and say the statistics are saying things that they don't actually say. This is what a lot of people do a lot of times. They'll take a stat and say the stat is saying this, but they're actually projecting. A stat might show a trend, but it doesn't necessarily serve as a descriptor for a whole group of people. But this is something that Charlie did several times. He has propagated racist messaging, and this is why some people aren't experiencing sympathy in this moment. As a Christian, I am able to say that humans, from my point of view, don't get to choose when someone dies. I think we should leave that up to God, no matter how disgusting their messaging is. However, I do think it's important. Allow the family to mourn and deal with that situation. But those of us who aren't as connected to it can be adults, and let's be realistic that someone's life experience doesn't suddenly disappear just because they passed. And Charlie has a very bad track record as it relates to race or sensitivity or awareness when it comes to gun violence. So allow us to have the conversation about the racial dynamics that are at play here, specifically with my original post, which was about people agreeing with the idea that Mike Brown reaped what he sowed when he was killed, essentially because they thought he was a bad guy. And in some, they might not be confident enough to say this or courageous enough to say this, but because they thought Mike was a bad guy, they thought that he deserved to be killed. I don't agree with that ideology, but if those conservatives have that ideology, how much more would it then apply to Charlie, who was a virulent racist? Again, I don't support it. I never said anybody reap what they sowed. But those people do need to be held accountable. Start with Odie Bacham, and then also the white evangelicals that supported that message with Mike Brown need to really reconsider.